everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I am here with Lorraine Murphy. Welcome, Lorraine. How are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm really good. It's a weird day of spring here. It's kind of drizzly and it's sunny and it's drizzly and it's cold and I feel like it's very Melbourne right now
And
in
I'm like, it's
Sydney.
been quite consistent today here in
Yeah.
Melbourne with some sunshine. I would
Yeah.
love for you to introduce yourself. What is it that you do, and how did we meet?
Ah. So about me, first of all, so I am Irish. You people may have noticed that I haven't quite got my Aussie accent nailed yet. So I've been in Australia. It's almost 14 years now, and my background was in public relations, so I got to kind of account director level in PR, and then decided that I wanted to start my own business, but I didn't really know what that business would be. So it took me about a couple of years with the business idea to drop in. What I ended up doing was launching the first talent agency for social influencers in Australia, and I launched that from my spare bedroom all the way back in May 2012. Yes, 2012, so 10 years ago now. And that business went on, probably biggest surprise of all to me, to be a really awesome success. So we built it to multi-million dollars of revenue. I got to win us lots of awards for myself and for the team in the business, and got to do brilliant things like go and spend a week in Necker Island with Sir Richard Branson. So that business was brilliant. It was an absolute roller coaster. It was my first business. I had no business experience going into it. And when our daughter was born in 2017, I guess as I think quite a few parents have experienced, I really took a bit of a step back and said, okay, what do I want to create now with this next 5.5 years? And what I decided to do was to sell that business to my business partner at the time, and instead to create a second business, which was focused on what I call my soul on fire at work. So writing my books, I've published 4 books now, mentoring, speaking, really coaching others on how to go upon this entrepreneurship journey. So that's what I've been doing for 4.5 years now. So my business is called Remarkability, and within that I do mentoring, I do speaking, and I've also got a program called the Bold Darling program, which is where I mentor female entrepreneurs and help them create brilliant and successful businesses, but also without sacrificing themselves in the process, which is no easy thing to do, as I've experienced myself.
Yeah, that is next level, and I love it because it is something that we tend to do, especially as women, show up and then lose ourselves in the way of doing
Yeah,
it.
that's
So
it. Yeah, servicing the clients, servicing the team, everything that everyone else needs, and forgetting about ourselves in the process.
I love that. And so why did you transition out of your other business?
I feel I had really pioneered social media marketing. Influencer marketing. And I was we were the first business of our kind in Australia to do what we were doing, and got to create a huge amount of firsts within that. And I was super passionate about influencer marketing. I would talk about it all day long for many, many years. And I think what happened when Lexi was born then was I realized I'd already published my first book at this point when I decided to sell the business. And my second one was about to be published. And I felt that I had this thought of, she's going to be 5 before I know it, which she is now. And I said, what do I want to do in those 5 years? So the business plan was for us to take the business global, for me to live in the UK and launch the business there pretty soon. And I just realized I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to do work that I feel really sets my soul on fire. And I remember going to an influencer marketing conference about 4 months after she was born, and I was just sitting there going, this isn't exciting. This isn't lighting me up anymore. And what did light me up was the mentoring and the speaking. So I said, okay, well, if I sold a business in 5 years' time after doing this whole global domination plan, what would I want to do? And it was writing, speaking, and mentoring. So then I kind of went, well, why don't I just do that now?
Why wait? Yeah, of course.
Why wait? So yeah, that was the thought process behind it.
I love that. It definitely takes courage as well to be able to go, well, yes, logically this could bring me whatever in 5 years, but why not do it now and take that leap? And I absolutely love that. So thank you for sharing that. So on to the finance side, the background of your business.
The fun side.
Yeah, I
said that sarcastically because I'm not a finance person, as you know.
I love it. Come on, you like it a little bit more now.
I do like it a little bit more. It's a lot more manageable now, thankfully.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Like, when did you first come across Profit First? What was happening for you?
Yeah, well, actually, one of our best friends had read Profit First and told my husband Wade about it. And
Mhm.
Wade's also an entrepreneur. So he had read it and said that I should look at it. And then for whatever reason, like for a year or two, I just didn't really, the time didn't feel right to pick up the book. And then
Yep.
last year I read it and just so much of it resonated. The whole, yeah, looking at your at your zero, trying to make sense of it, and the whole idea that so much of it is retrospective. It's not actually based
Mhm.
on our own behavior. So much of Mike's book resonated, and I really looked back, I guess, with quite a bit of regret at that first business because it was a highly profitable business. It
Mhm.
was the year I sold the business, we had done 2.65 million that year, so it was multi-million dollars of revenue. And I really look back at those days and said, if I had have had Profit First set up then, how different things could have been over those years in the business. So, because I mean, so much of it resonated, but a huge part that resonated was that whole idea of when you've got that cash in the bank and it's like that large plate, whereas when you
Yes.
slice and dice it into the smaller plates. And I was the queen of going, cool, we did 200K this month. Okay, what can I spend that money on?
Yep.
And it was quite confronting, I have to say, reading the book and going, oh my God, that's what I was doing. So that's been really, that was really powerful for me in reading the book. And I knew that I wanted to implement the system in my business. I'm very much a done for me person than a DIY
Mhm.
person. So I reached out to your team and you put me in touch with Nadia, who is my Profit First accountant. And yeah, we've been running since I think the start of February, March. We've been running Profit
Mhm.
First since in the business.
So what's changed for you since then? Like, what sort of have you noticed mindset shifts or looking at things a bit differently since you've implemented that?
Yeah, I mean, something that's definitely shifted is the structure, having the bank accounts and having those small plates and being able to see where everything is
Mhm.
at any one point in time. So I think that structure has been really, really helpful. And I think it's been this is a good and a bad thing. It has given me a lot more visibility on profit because I always
Mhm.
because I'm used to old school looking at my zero and saying, "Oh, wow, we did like X amount of profit in the last year. This is great." And then of course, as I said, finding a way to spend that money quite quickly. And what I've realized that when you actually when I have been banking the profit, it's not as much as I think it is. So it's
Yeah.
a good thing in terms of I've got that visibility now, whereas before I was kind of get like ostrich head and sand about it. But
Mhm.
it's really made me realize that I need to work the business really hard in order to start to unlock more of that profit. And yeah, full transparency, I feel like I'm only getting to that point now because it's been quite a high growth year. I've invested a lot in the
Mhm.
business in terms of launching Bold Darling, branding. It's been quite an expensive year. So I really think now, really from this month, I've also onboarded a couple of new team members. So I think from this month now, it's like, okay, now we've got the system working, the allocations are working, the transfers, it's all the bank accounts are set up, which was a really big procrastination part for me. And now it's time to actually start driving that profit. So increasing the profit that's going in and reducing what's going into the OPEX accounts, operating expenses account.
I love that. One of the biggest things, the myths that I hear all the time is you can't grow and have Profit First implemented. So the fact that you've
Mm,
said that you'll only be able to work on the profitability, which is different to Profit First doesn't work if you're in growth. You've made really clear decisions about how you're going to be spending your money around, branding and having additional support and that sort of thing. Did it make it clearer as to how much more money you were spending on those areas that otherwise may have gone sort of free rein?
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that has been sobering at times as well, because as I said, I'm very good at being spendy. I saw one of my friends, she's also an entrepreneur, posted something on Insta yesterday, and she said, my toxic habit is saying it's only $20 50 times a week.
Yes, it's so true.
And that's it, isn't it? It's all these little things. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I love sending gifts, for example, to my mentees, and it's a $50 here and $100 here. And then by the end of the month, that's close to $1,000 has been spent if it's been a big month for my mentees and I'm trying to kind of love on them and extra hard. So yeah, I think it has been confronting at times as well, which I think is a good thing. I needed that confrontation in my life.
Yeah, for sure, because it can slip through the cracks, and it's the great thing about it is as well is that you can make really conscious decisions around how you're spending your money, but it's also not going to get you into an area where there's this big problem and you're like, how did I get here? Like,
Mm,
what the steps were that you took and how to change that around if you choose to do so,
yeah,
which I
yeah,
think isn't spoken about enough
yeah.
when it
Agreed.
comes to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What um what was your biggest challenge with it all?
It sounds so silly, but just setting up the bank account, setting up those two bank accounts, those kind of off out of sight bank accounts,
Mhm,
because I had, and this is the thing, right? It's like it's amazing how the smallest blocks can get in our way.
mhm,
I had decided to go with Bank West, so I bank my to day business banking is Commonwealth Bank. So I
mhm.
decided to go with Bank West, and I printed out the forms, and then I needed to go into the post office to get the what's it called, like the identity confirmation type
Identity.
thing. But the
Mhm.
post office wouldn't accept it because my printer, whichever way to print it, cut off the bottom, and I couldn't fix the printer settings. So it's like the most stupid little things that get in our way, and it's almost like a way of self sabotaging. Just not actually getting in a cab, going into the city, going to the Bank West branch, getting it done in person. It's yeah, it sounds really silly, but that was my biggest block.
Well, you're not alone. So many
Really?
people yeah, so many people are like, "Well, I'll get to it."
Yeah,
And
and I hate admin. Like I hate admin. So yeah, I just procrastinated like a mofo on that. And actually, in the end, what I ended up doing is we refinanced our investment property to buy a second one earlier on this year. So
mhm,
what I've actually done is I've made our offset account for one of the mortgages the business savings account. So only
mhm.
business money will sit in there. My accountant's fully, Nadia's fully across it. But it's just that just removed one block, was just to actually have that
Yeah.
account set up, and that works great then because it means the money's working harder than it is just sitting in a standard bank account.
Absolutely, and I think this is key when you tend to do it yourself a lot of the time as well. It's like, well, this is I don't like this, so I'm going to leave it alone. And so you have like a half done thing. Whereas when you're with
Mm,
someone, you can have the conversation and say, well, I've got this offset account.
yeah.
How can I make this possible? And for a person to be like, this is fine as long as X, Y, Z. And I think that's the
Yes.
power of often having that advisor or that person to check in with
Yeah.
and, ensure that that happens.
Yeah. So true.
Why
I mean,
do
I
you
was never going to go and do the phone calls and whatever I needed to do in order to
Yeah,
find out if that was okay to do that. Whereas just having one person who has the answers, who's the oracle, is very helpful.
I love that, the oracle.
Yeah.
I don't know, I know Nadia will probably be like, "I'm not an oracle,"
Yeah, yeah,
but
she
she's
would be.
definitely an expert in what it is that she does. So, why do you think it was those 2 accounts, though, that were the things that you're just like, did you see a point in them?
Oh yeah, 100% saw the point. It was just such a pain in the ass to go and get my identity docs, and yeah. And as I said, self-sabotage, 100% self-sabotage.
Yeah, no, I love that because other people have said the exact same thing around the second bank, those 2 bank accounts, and
Yeah.
that's generally because they're like, "Well, I don't really need them." Whereas once they start using it and you start to see that accumulation, it
Oh, it's so
actually
good. And
it's
just
so
not having that
good.
easy access, even personally, my husband kind of manages our personal bank account, and he has set up a direct debit that our savings go out every 2 weeks now, instead of us just sitting there and going, oh, we'll save whatever's left over at the end of the month. And it's amazing. We're saving and we're feeling the pinch. Like we can see where we were overspending
Mhm.
because we feel the pinch. We pay it ourselves fortnightly, and our whole cycle's built fortnightly personally. So yeah, it works. And that's almost like a taking a leaf out of the Profit First book, but at home.
I love it, and that's the thing is you can actually have it in your personal and your business as long as
Mm,
whatever it is that you're concentrating on is your focus, the first thing. So
yes.
if it's profit in business or savings in personal, it's that principle that really makes a difference. So I've got a question for you for those watching. What would be your biggest tip when it comes to either looking at your finances or considering profit first or anything that kind of comes to mind in that respect?
I think it's just implementing Profit First as soon as you can. I mean, I really wish that, 10 years ago, can you imagine if I had done this 10 years ago? Like, there's the visibility and just that constant profitability, even though the business, again, similar to what has happened with me this year, was in fast growth for a lot of those 5.5 years that I owned it. I think, yeah, just getting it implemented. And I write about in my second book, which is called Get Remarkably Organized. I talk about the whole kind of like the underlying foundation of everything to do with being organized is looking after our future selves. And I think
Mhm.
if past Lorraine 10 years ago had a set up profit first, like future Lorraine sitting here would have been so happy, because I cannot tell you the amount of stuff that I just randomly spent money on in that business because there was no parameters, there was no structure, there was no ongoing commitment to profitability within the business. So yeah, I would just say implement it as soon as you can, and implement it as well as you can as soon as you can.
That's it. You've heard it from Lorraine. Look after your
Yeah.
future self.
Yes.
I love that. And for those that are curious to find out a little bit more about what it is that you do, what's the best way for them to find you?
Go to my website, which is lorrainemurphy.com.au, and also check out my Instagram, which is at Lorraine Remarks as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me and for
Thank you.
sharing
That
your
was
profit
fun.
first
Thank you for having me.
experience. I absolutely loved it. And for anyone watching, if you have any comments or you'd like to know anything more from Lorraine, feel free to drop it in and we will loop back and answer that. So thank you for being here and have a great
Amazing.
rest of the day.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.